Anime is constantly under attack for the risks that the creators take and the differences in storytelling that some people in the West are a little bit bothered by, but now Screen Rant is praising a new Crunchyroll fantasy series for avoiding what they call a major problem plaguing modern anime. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube membership. So, it says Unnamed Memory clearly avoids the forced marriage trope seen in many anime, offering a more palatable alternative for viewers. It says, warning, spoilers, Crunchyroll's new fantasy series Unnamed Memory initially set itself up to follow in the problematic footsteps of many new anime, but switched gears in time to tread into safer, uncontroversial territory. This subversion is especially relevant now since another new series from Crunchyroll's spring season clearly went the more provocative route in the first two episodes that debuted simultaneously. Straight off the bat, I am so bothered with the narrative that this journalist Stephen Blackburn is going with, because it is perfectly fine to have controversial or unsafe storytelling. That is not a negative thing. If he had said straight off the bat, I personally am not very big into controversial tropes, okay, that would be fine. That would be his opinion. But to go on and ramble about how, this series is righting the wrongs of an entire genre is pretty bad. It is not something that I personally would ever have praised, and that he clearly thinks people are going to praise. The topic in question is a form of slavery between a male master and female slave that eventually begets marriage. This is not a trope for everybody, and I can completely understand that, but to bash it and the people who enjoy it and the people who want to consume this kind of entertainment is pretty crappy. In Unnamed Memory, the protagonist and crowned Prince Oscar was initially in a position of power that could have forced a witch named Tanisha to become his wife. However, instead of him exercising the sway over her, the episode ends with her agreeing of her own free will to spend 1 year with him in an unwed capacity to see if she would like to marry him, and this proves the controversial subject so popular in modern anime can be easily avoided without harm to the story. The major problem with entertainment is that you have normies like this guy, Stephen Blackburn, who wants to sanitize anime, and companies who will listen to these idiotic takes. We are getting to a point where tons of entertainment is now written with harmful tropes or content in mind so they can avoid them, but we're going to get to the point where everything is sanitized and nothing takes risks, which will mean everything is cookie cutter. Controversial storytelling is powerful storytelling. Not all stories are written to be comfortable, and that should be okay, and it is okay to everyone except insane people like this who want to find a problem in everything, and not everything is for everyone. There is plenty of anime that is soft and sweet, slice of life content where the female is the lead and she's the dominant character. I mean, the list goes on and on of the variety, and that is fantastic, and that is why so many people have moved away from, more Western entertainment and Hollywood to consuming anime and manga, because there is just such a variety there, and that is why I constantly try to praise Japanese entertainment at basically any chance that I get. And then you have people like this who will still complain, even though he didn't have to put up this article, even though he didn't have to watch this series, and he could have just simply moved on, or he could have started the article off with saying, this is not typically a trope that I personally like, but instead he tries to say that this one series rights the wrong of an entire genre. It also says this fantasy series subverts controversial themes effectively, showing that nuanced storytelling can be achieved without resorting to harmful tropes. And they are alluding to the writer of this trying to specifically avoid certain tropes and themes. But I think this is just what the writer wanted to write. I don't think they wrote it to specifically avoid tropes to appeal to modern audiences. I think that's this journo projecting their ideas into the situation. He didn't sit and think, what's everyone else doing so I can do something different? No, he had an idea for characters and a story and went with it. They're not trying to right the wrongs of other writers. He's just trying to tell his own story, and that is awesome, and that is what you should be writing articles about. You could be praising the fact that, yes, of course, there are some differences in this versus other similar stories, and, you know, those other stories have tropes, but this one doesn't have it. But he's not approaching it that way. This journo is not approaching it in a positive way. He's basically just attacking other series by using this series. He also brings up Rising of the Shield Hero. This section says this highly nuanced situation in Unnamed Memory clearly breaks from the current trend in anime where a male protagonist enters into a contract where a female becomes his slave. Of course, many of these series add more nuances to make each master's decision more morally gray as opposed to blatantly evil, but slavery is still involved, which is understandably upsetting to many viewers. Yes, and then I would highly recommend you do not watch this content. But again, controversial themes are powerful themes. Seeing these characters who enslave people in a lot of cases grow and become better human beings and letting their slaves go free is a very powerful message and a very good message. Even though at the beginning slavery was still involved, you're never going to be able to completely get rid of things like slavery in entertainment, because again, it would then become cookie cutter bland content, and that is what people like me fight against and people like you fight against. It says, although the most well-known perpetrator is the Rising of the Shield Hero, the most recent example, which just so happens to include the prospect of marriage, is an archdemon's dilemma, How to Love Your Elf Bride. The eponymous archdemon might have only entered such a contract with his enslaved potential elven bride because he made the decision during a moment of extreme mental duress caused by feelings of love he wasn't familiar with, but she's still enslaved. I love Rising of the Shield Hero, and I have not seen Archdemon's Dilemma yet, but I'm going to go and watch it now, and it doesn't even sound like this, series, Unnamed Memory, is all that bad. It to me also sounds highly entertaining, but at the same time, you've now got journalists, pushing this narrative that, oh, this writer specifically wrote this to avoid the major problem that, quote, is plaguing modern anime, but until this writer comes out and says that, I'm calling bullshit. I am saying this journo is just projecting their ideas into the situation because there are no quotes here, no statements. I also could not find any other information on this series that would point to that being the case, and it's just so sad to see journalists using what sounds like a really good piece of entertainment to push their own narratives. I will be keeping my eye on this situation to see if there are any interviews that come out or any statements that could back this up, but I highly doubt it. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.